We are back on Morning Line. Our guest with us this morning, Tim Takis, elder care attorney. Good to have him on. Nice to see you, sir.
It is.
You know
great
it's
to be
him,
here.
even if you don't recognize his face, you recognize the bow tie.
The bow tie. You know, it's funny. I was, and I don't mean to digress because I know we have calls, but you know, we were my team and I. We were at a professional conference in New Orleans last month, and so we were walking down the street like, you know, and there was like a vendor table, and he was selling bow ties. You know, so I buy two bow ties, you know, and you know the guy, I said I tie these all the time, and he goes, you know, he's like 30-some, and he goes, so what do you do that, you know? I said, well, I'm an elder law attorney, and he goes, first thing he said was, well, I took the LSAT, you know, and the LSAT for those of us is the law school admission test. So here's some guy with a top hat, you know, selling bow ties in New Orleans, taking, you know,
his law career
hasn't started yet, you know, or whatever. But you know, so it was kind of funny.
You bought two bow ties.
So I bought two bow ties for him. So
well,
anyway,
well, no, that's all right. He wears a different one every show. So
I do. Yes.
All right, listen. We had a caller that couldn't stay on the line, but was asking a question about what are nursing home annuities and what do you think of them?
Okay, a nursing home annuity really is a Medicaid qualifying annuity, and what that means is that, and we've talked about this on the show, is you go into a nursing home, and the nursing home's $7,000–8,000 a month.
All right.
And you're going, okay, how can I afford this? I don't have the money, or I've got the money, but you know, it's $75,000 or $80,000 a year. You know, the money's going to run out, and if I've got a spouse or whatever it is, or I've got, you know, I want to leave something to my children, how do I do that? You know, then, you know, you got to get your money down to $2,000 before the Medicaid program will pay.
Okay, so how do you do that?
And so then you take your money, you know, and you turn it into an income stream, and that's what an annuity is. All right. So you get, let's say, and this is really, we use them from time to time when we have a spouse who's living at home and has maybe not much income, you know, and her husband is often, maybe the husband is in the nursing home, and so, you know, how do we make sure that we protect the spouse by giving, you know, instead of spending all of the money, you know, on her husband's nursing home care, you know, the Medicaid rules allow us to, for her, the spouse at home, to purchase a special form of annuity contract.
It's like an investment?
It's like an investment.
All right.
You know, it's literally going to an insurance company or a financial services company and say, I want to buy an annuity that pays, maybe it's $100,000 that will pay maybe $800 or $900 a month.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, for maybe 10 years for the spouse at home.
Okay, and the principal would stay untied. That's not interest being drawn on the investment?
No, interest plus principal that goes back.
Goes back. Okay.
Right.
All right, I've got you. Right. But it's a way to preserve some of that money for the
spouse at home.
I guess, what does that mean for the person in the nursing home then?
They would be able to qualify for Medicaid.
I say because of that.
Because
you moved the money
we took that $100,000 that would otherwise be spent on the nursing home and moved it into an income stream.
Okay, so your opinion of that is in certain circumstances?
In certain circumstances, that's a good option.
What would be a reason to say, probably let's not do that?
Well, I had a client that they came in and they had like $700,000–800,000. Okay. You know, and we're going, do you really want to put an $800,000 annuity in place for your 89-year-old mom? Yeah. You know, for your 91-year-old father can qualify for Medicaid, because, you know, that's really not going to be a good fit for that couple.
Well, because they have enough money, right?
Exactly.
That's the point.
Yeah.
They have the money.
You know, and let's say even if they bought that annuity, let's say they bought an $800,000 annuity that paid out $15,000 or $20,000 a month to the spouse at home. Yeah. Well,
that's more money they would need.
The likelihood is that she dies. The money then is, you know, there's going to be eventually perhaps a Medicaid payback anyway. Okay. You know, so. All right. So it's a right, whether it's the right fit, does it protect the spouse at home? Yep. Are there other options that are a better fit?
Right, and that comes down sometimes to how much money do they really have in the account, and that was.
And even then is that if you buy let's say you buy an $800,000 Medicaid annuity, they're all what we call their transaction costs. I mean, you're paying a commission to somebody.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You know, and that's what they're there for. You know, you may pay a 10–15% commission or whatever it is on an $800,000 annuity, and that's what's $800,000, $80,000.
That's a chunk of change.
Yes,
so
it is.
Don't do that unless.
Unless you know. So it has to be the right.
It's better ways.
It's better ways.
All right, let's go to Brian. Brian, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Brian, what's on your mind, buddy?
Well, a little tired this morning. I was wondering, what's a living will? And then also, like, I'm 50. When do most people retire? Like, I know I'll get my Social Security at 62, and I've got a small pension coming when I'm 55 or 56, I think, or 57.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I live out in the country. And I don't really, I don't know how to describe it. I still work, you know, I work, you know, but I probably don't push it as hard as I did in my 30s and 40s, you know, and I live more out in the country. And I don't know what he would recommend. Also, at one point, what does a person, if they can't take care of themselves? I mean, I saw in the news, and you guys talk about people just forcing themselves. Oh, I'm power of attorney. I control you now. Mm-hmm. I mean, can't that other person ever get better? Or I see it out in the country too. These older people. I mean, what's up with that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, a bunch of good questions there.
Right.
What do you want to hit first? Living will?
Well, let's talk about the living will. Is it's a document that people have that says that if I have a terminal illness or I'm in a persistent vegetative state, it means that you don't want extraordinary measures, artificial resuscitation, CPR, those sorts of things. You know, it only operates in a limited, you know, under a limited set of circumstances. Sure. We don't. You know, I used to be a real advocate of living wills, but that was kind of before I saw how they were being used in the wild, we'll call it, so to speak.
Tell me about how they were being abused in the wild, perhaps.
You know, not necessarily abused, but they've been misconstrued in the past as maybe do not treat or do not resuscitate. And let me give you an example.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I had a 90-some-year-old client, and his children came in, and they're going, I can't believe what happened. So, well, what happened? He says, well, you know, Daddy fell, and he broke his hip, and we went to the hospital, and the hospital said, well, you know, your dad has a living will, you know, do you want us to treat him? You know, and they're going, well, what do you mean? I mean, he broke his hip. Mm-hmm. You know, what are you going to just let him, you know, let him die there?
Right.
You know, and what I learned, and this was like in the late 90s.
Okay.
You know, and I started to like think more about that and talk to people that are, you know, in the profession, mm-hmm. you know, in the medical community. You know, I remember having one conversation with a physician, and she said, I wouldn't have a living will because I know that it's being often is misconstrued as do not treat or do not resuscitate.
But don't you get more specific than that? I understand that's if, like you said before, you're in a vegetative state.
Or you have a terminal illness.
A terminal illness, yes. Or right.
Yeah.
Isn't that clarified? But a broken hip, it's like, exactly. Of course you don't.
Yeah, there was a study that was published, actually it was written by an emergency room doctor.
Interesting.
You know, it published in 2012, and you know, they did a survey and found that about three-fourths of all emergency room physicians thought that a living will meant do not treat or do not resuscitate.
Dang, you don't have one, do you?
No. I do not.
Okay, and I can see in some circumstances where that's a good idea, but I'm just, like I said, I learned stuff from you. I'm not going to get one. That's the last thing I want to have happen is to go in.
Because you only get one shot at it, right?
I know, and they say, we're not going to treat his broken hip. It's one thing, broken hip. It's another thing if it's terminal illness or if I'm in a persistent vegetative state. Pull the plug on me yesterday. I'm good with that.
Right.
But the other stuff, no.
Right, and so what we tell people and what we advocate is we say, look, you know, make sure you have a healthcare agent, get an advance directive, durable power of attorney for healthcare.
Yeah.
You know, your spouse, you know, your children, other family members. Don't do it by committee. Mm-hmm. You know, don't have three, you know, whatever it is, because they have to agree. That's not going to work.
Right.
You know, and make sure that you choose somebody that's here, that's local, mm-hmm. that can act for you when you need it. Second is make sure that the person that you have, that you've appointed, knows what you want, mm-hmm. you know, and is able to advocate for you and is willing to advocate for you. A lot of times that's your spouse, but it's the same time sometimes people, maybe they have a spouse, but maybe they don't really, maybe they haven't had those conversations.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what we want them to have. You know, and finally the way I look at it is that you're naming somebody, you know, that cares about you. Mm-hmm. You know, and sometimes that's the most we can hope for is that at the end we have someone with us, you know, that cares about us.
All right, we'll take a break. I know he had a couple other questions that we can hit on when we come back as well. The number is 737-7587. Tim, take us with us on Morning Line. We'll be back with more right after this.